days for his left ear to stop bleeding and a fortnight to recover from the concussion. During that time, he had hoped the ringing in his ears would go away, but it had only seemed to worsen. During the month following his recovery, he had entered this room every morning as if to work. He had sat down at the grand piano, pretending that nothing was wrong, telling himself over and over that his affliction was temporary, but he had not lost his gift. But if only he tried, he would be able to write music again. Finally, he had given up in despair, and he had not entered this room since then. He walked slowly to the immense broad wood grand piano, staring at the glow of his candle reflecting off the polished walnut top. Perhaps in the past 3 months some magical transformation had taken place, and when he put his hands on the keys, the music would come again. He could at least try. After placing the candle in the carved walnut holder meant for that purpose, he propped up the lid of the piano and sat down on the bench. Dylan stared down at the keys for a long moment, then ran his fingers over them in the notes of a minuet, the first piece of music he had ever written. Not bad for a 7-year-old boy, he conceded. But in the intervening 20 years, he had composed 19 symphonies, 10 operas, and so many concertos, waltzes, and sonatas that he couldn't possibly count them all. He had been born into wealth, and from his music he had achieved not only more money, but fame and critical success as well. Yet he knew it all counted for nothing. It was the music that mattered. It was the music that he loved. He glanced at the scribbled sheet music before him, staring at his own writing as if it were that of a stranger. It was from Valmont, his latest composition, the opera he had written based on the scandalous novel Les Liaisons Dangereuses. He had finished the work the day before that shattering autumn ride through Hyde Park. He had written the opera in less than a week. Music had always come so easily to him. He had always been able to hear melodies in his mind. They had poured from his consciousness onto pages with ease, a gift he had always taken for granted. With brutal clarity, he suddenly acknowledged the truth. Valmont was the last thing he had written, the last thing he would ever write. Why not admit it? He couldn't hear the music any more. The wine in his head drowned it out. 4 different physicians had told him the damage was permanent, but he was fortunate to still be able to hear, but he would get used to the noise. His fingers crashed down on the keys, and he rose to his feet. Creating music was the passion of his life, the purpose of his existence. Now the gift was gone. He would never get used to it. He blew out the candle and left the house. A heavy fog had descended, the curse of winter in London, and he walked mindlessly through it, concentrating on the tap of his boots against the cobblestones. He walked without any conscious direction, only realizing where his footsteps were leading him when he found himself standing in front of the Charing Cross Palladium. The once popular concert hall had long ago given way to the more opulent Covent Garden. The owner had little interest in attempting to regain for the Palladium its former eminence, but Dylan had conducted his first symphony here a decade ago, when the Palladium's popularity had been at its height. The place was little used now, and he could not help a grim smile at the irony. How appropriate. A has-been concert hall for a has-been composer. A faint light filtered out from beneath the double entrance doors, and Dylan frowned. Why should there be lamps lit inside the building at this hour? He pulled on the handle of one of the doors and found that it was unlocked. He stepped inside. "Is anyone here?" he called, but his voice echoed through the place and died away with no reply. He crossed the wide foyer and passed through one of the arches that led into the theatre itself. Several stage lamps were flickering, and their light revealed a mop and bucket on the floor of the stage, but there was no person in sight. Dylan called out again, but he still received